प्रातस्मरामि हृदि संस्फुरत् आत्मतत्त्वं सच्चित् सुखं परमहंसगतिं तुरीयम् यत् स्वप्नजागरसुसुप्तम् अवैति नित्यं तद् ब्रह्म निष्कलमहं न च भूतसङ्घः. At dawn, I meditate within my heart on the self-effulgent Atman, the existence, knowledge, bliss absolute, the goal of the greatest ascetics, the transcendent and the eternal, who is beyond the states of waking, dream and sleep. I am, verily, that indivisible Brahman, and not a combination of material elements. Good morning. Today, the title of our talk is The Play of Ego and the Supreme Knowledge. Sometimes we think that our life, our whole life, is nothing but a play of ego. And if we are an experienced audience, a unattached witness, we can feel, we can see this play is a funny one. And of course, not a boring one. We have seen when we think of ourselves as a little boy or a little girl, we perform every activity of our lives like a boy or little girl who is not attached to anything. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, I or ego of a boy, baloker ami. So sometimes you have seen that a little boy or a girl is quite attached with the fellow students of his or her school or the neighborhood. But their parents, if it happened that they have to settle somewhere else, first a few days maybe he or she may be feel little sad, but within a few days he or she will get new friends, and simply they will forget the fellow students of his or her previous school. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Baloke Rami, unattached. When we associate ourselves with our profession, sometimes we do, sometimes we think, I am a doctor or a lawyer. We dress like a doctor or a lawyer. Again, when the feeling of I am a child, I am the son, I am a daughter of somebody else, we leave all our work and engage ourselves in the service of our parents. When you are serving your parents, you forget about whether you are a doctor, a lawyer, or then the dominant idea in your mind would be, I am the daughter or I am the son of this particular person. And when, again we have seen that when we think of ourselves as a good citizen, we do our civil duties mindfully and follow all the rules. When we are sitting in a car in a signal, red signal, we want to abide all the rules. Then what you are thinking about yourself? I am a good citizen. So always we generally see this play of ego is going on inside us. Actually, that's why we have said that our whole life is a play of ego. Moment to moment, we are changing our identification with our ego. That's why that you probably noticed, and some of you probably know that the the chant, we chanted now, the stotra, the verse. It is from Parabrahmana Prata Smarana Stotram by Shankaracharya. In the morning meditation hymns, you start your day with that. Sometimes when you woke up from your bed, sometimes many of our monks or devotees, they look at Sri Ramakrishna's picture first. Then they start their work. Or somebody, if there is a devotee of Sri Krishna or Sri Rama, they think about Sri Krishna Rama. So it reminds us that it give a proper tuning of our life to start our daily work. So we need a proper tuning. As soon as we wake up, the first thought that rises in the mind is the I am. Therefore, we should first remind ourselves of the true nature of the I as the Atman, which is different from the body and mind. It is man's idea of man that determines his view of life, and it is his view of life that determines his way of living. Man is said to be a born philosopher. An individual lives according to his own philosophy of life. We have a philosophy of life. Everyone we have, and it is different from our friend. His mode of living is sound or unsound, as his concept of man is sound or unsound. Without a right conception of human personality, there cannot be a plan of right living. The pressing need of the right conception of human personality for right living is evidenced by history. If you read the history books, that you know that it is human being that constitutes a civilization. So it is in a collective way, it is very much true to have a proper understanding about who we are really. It is a historical truth that man's idea of man has been the dominant force in the development of individuals and of nations as well. The social, political, cultural, ethical, and religious ideals and practices of a nation have their roots in its conception of human personality. Man's idea of man is at the core of every civilization that has grown in the world. It accounts for the strengths and the weaknesses of each civilization. If a civilization choose the physical body, our main goal to care, we are the physical being. Our goal is to save and protect our physical entity. So what will happen? That historian Toynbee, he wrote once about Greek civilization. He wrote, the same Greek idea of man, which accounts for the Greek civilization, rise and culmination, is also the explanation of its strange and tragic fate. Hellenism was betrayed by what was false within it. So germ was there inside the civilization. That's why we have to be careful. The ego and the self stand at two opposite ends of our spiritual journey. Our inquiry begins with the ego and culminates in the realization of the self. We start think, who am I? And that is the start of your journey. Broadly speaking, the ego can be taken as the part of the mind which expresses individuality. It is the ego that gives us the sense of I and mine. The ego is the mouthpiece of the personality. The total personality is, of course, a very complex thing. Various factors in the body and mind, such as biological urges, glands and neural structures, emotions, and other elements, are involved in the construction of the personality. But so far as its vehicle of expression, namely the ego, is concerned, it expresses what you want to say, it expresses what you want to be. There is not much difficulty in understanding and grasping it. Every moment of our lives, we are keenly conscious of ourselves as individual. When we think or speak or do anything, we know that the ego, our I sense, is present. Its role is very important in our everyday lives. As a rule, there cannot be any activity, mental or physical, any understanding, feeling, or desire without the sense of individuality in the background. The ego is the master player of our present mental plane. Therefore, of course, certain exceptional situations are there when the ego might not be involved in our dreams and when we are engaged in some our work that we love. For example, when we are deeply engrossed in some artistic object or while listening to a beautiful music. Our I sense becomes attenuated and may even disappear completely. In common language, we say that we were so absorbed that we forgot ourselves. This is also the case in certain types of religious experience where the devotee or the person or the seeker of God is so moved by divine love that the ego drops to its minimum level. Maybe you are visiting some beautiful place of pilgrimage, maybe Vrindavan, maybe Kashi, maybe Belur Math. You forgot yourself how much time you have spent. You are completely oblivious about the time and your identity. And sometimes, and not sometimes, daily we have that experience in our dream state. When a person dreams during sleep, his sense organs lose the power of perception. The motor organs, the power of action, the body, the power of sensation, and the mind, the power of volition. This is because his consciousness recedes wholly from the body and partly from the mind. In dreamless sleep, all his mental operations cease because consciousness recedes from the mind altogether. No thought, no feeling, no memory, no imagination, no cognition of any kind stirs the mind. Even egoism drops. Only morning you can realize, I have spent the night. So somebody is there. Ego drops, but self was that always aware of that, of the experience. That is the reason we always, this is the one of the reason, logical reason, that self, our real self, our true awareness and ego is different. Except in these special cases, we find that the ego is always present in daily life. The ego is the thread that pulls the different elements of the individuality together and gives it cohesion. When the ego functions, it associates with a wide variety of objects. The ego by itself is a neutral entity, but this neutrality ends in the field of operation. The ego has to identify with something. It's a strange nature of ego. It cannot express itself. For example, the ego has to identify itself with the body. Then we say, I am healthy, or my height is 6 feet, or 5 feet, I should not say 6 feet. When I say, I am thinking, my ego has associated itself with the mind. When I say, I am angry, the emotion of anger is the object of association. The ego in action changes from moment to moment, not with only body and mind, sometimes with values, cultural values, ethical values. So, when we think about that ethical qualities such as virtue, truth, and purity, or with some cultural values such as poetry, science, democracy, resulting in the corresponding assertions like I am virtuous, I am pure, I am truthful, I am a poet, I am a scientist, I am a citizen, and so on. In these various cases of identification, the ego connects itself with a clear understanding. But there are some extraordinary instances where the identification is only implicit. We all have experienced that, but we ignore that feeling because we had no time probably, we were too busy. The ego can identify itself with ideas that are vast and infinite, though it is not fully conscious of this fact. For example, we implicitly believe that we are not going to die. All our thoughts and actions betray the strong assumption that we shall always be there, that we are immortal. So this is, you can check all this fact. We always feel, I'll be not that you can believe, do not want to believe. There somewhere in very core of your existence you feel you will be there always. And sometimes, but this belief is not expressly recognized, it is subconsciously assumed. The ego is similarly occasionally confronted with feelings of boundless happiness, knowledge, or tranquility. Though we lack the time or courage to deeply ponder our kinship with these spiritual qualities, there is nevertheless an implicit identification in the background of our consciousness which we cannot shake off. Afterwards, we will see that we'll try to find out to read some of the verses from Viveka Chudamani of Shankaracharya. When during the conversation, a disciple is asking some question and the guru is answering. So always that sit in silence. So sit in silence. That then give some proper little time of this your implicit understanding, that what you are feeling. Here's another point also, apart from that. Yet, were we without this kind of cosmic ego identification, life here would be miserable. So it is a God's wish, I think, that sometimes it gives that idea also. Sometimes, rarely, we'll be always here. We are really immortal. Somewhere there is a connection with infinite bliss. So it's like a gift sometimes from God to continue your journey of this life. Otherwise it would be miserable to live in this life. We could not survive if every moment we fear death and were conscious of suffering, limitation, and ignorance. Fortunately for us, there is occasionally a sort of unrecognized implicit identification of the ego with the infinite. That's why we travel to see Atlantic. We love to sit in the shore of Pacific. Or sometimes that our astronauts love to go to the space. It is from that love. There is a connection with the infinity. This identification, however, is not clear in ordinary consciousness because it is superficial. It does not go deeply enough into the personality. We do not care to discover the true foundations of the personality. Although we often use the word, we do not fully know what the mind is. The ego seeks relationships. It becomes restless if it is left alone. The object of spiritual training is to give the ego spiritual relationships. That's why we practice religion. We need religion. Sri Ramakrishna used to speak of two kinds of ego, the ripe and the unripe. The ego that says, I am the child of God, I am the servant of God, is the ripe ego. The unripe ego is that which attaches itself to different ideas and objects of worldly enjoyment. It says, I am beautiful, I am powerful, I am wealthy. These identifications may be necessary in everyday life, but in the context of the highest spiritual goal, these notions are barriers. When you say, I am the body, you have covered your true self with a veil. For that reason, Sri Ramakrishna said that the point of spiritual practice is to gradually transform the unripe ego into a ripe ego. And fortunately, we have found out a beautiful conversation with Vijay and Sri Ramakrishna. If time permits, we'll read some part from that. When a person does some work, he or she may say, I am doing this. This is an expression of the unripe ego. The same activity can be taken up by shifting the ego's outlook. The person can say, this body which does the work is God's tool, an instrument. God is the agent. St. Paul is to say, I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. Now the ego has become transformed. It has become the ripe ego. There cannot be self-knowledge if the ego is left to its ignorant ways. We have to train our ego. Sometimes identifying itself with this and sometimes with that. Each identification becomes a link in a chain binding us to this relative existence, and thus the vision of our true nature remains far away. So let us read some of the verses from Viveka Chudamani, some beautiful verses. It is verse number 299, if somebody is interested. So it said, Sanyaste pratibandha pungsaha sangsara hetavo drishtaha tesham eshang moolang prathama vikaro bhavati ahankaraha. What is ahankara? Man's life of bondage to the world of birth and death has many causes. The root of them all is the ego, the first begotten child of ignorance. As long as a man identifies himself with this wicked ego, the Sanskrit it says Duratman. Duratman, one is Mahatman, a noble personality, the opposite of that, the wicked one, that wicked ego. There can be no possibility of liberation, for liberation is its very opposite. Ahankara grahan muktaha swarupam upapadyate chandravat vimalang purnaha sadanandaha swayam prabha. Once freed from this eclipsing demon of an ego, man regains his true nature, just as the moon shines forth when freed from the darkness of an eclipse. He becomes pure, infinite, eternally blissful, and self-luminous. So this is a beautiful book. Again, for easy understanding, again a dramatic illustration is given. So it said, Brahmananda nidhihi mahavalavata ahankara ghora ahina sangveshta atmani rakshate gunamais chandais strihir mastakai vigyana akhyam mahasina dhutimata vichidya shirshatrayang nirmulya ahimimam nidhi sukhakaram dhiro anubhoktum shamaha. Why I uttered that? Every word is beautiful, little dramatic, and beautiful illustration it is. It said that, let me read out that full one, the whole one. The ego is a strong and deadly serpent, and the gunas are its three angry hoods, sattva, rajas, and tama, three hoods of that serpent. It lies coiled around the treasure of the bliss of Brahman. Word is Brahmananda Nidhihi. Nidhi means treasure, a chest, full of Brahmananda, the bliss of Brahman. which it guards for its own use. The ahankara, for its own use, he wants to protect that, guard that. The wise man, inspired by the holy scriptures, cuts off the three hoods with the sword of knowledge and utterly destroys that serpent. Thus, he enjoys the treasure of supreme bliss. So beautiful. First, Mahavalavata. It is not that serpent is Mahavalavata, of great strength, which has been acquired firmly by drinking the milk of sense objects. Yeah. Where from it got the strength? The ahamkara, the ego, it has it by drinking the milk of sense objects. We always supplied. Drink it. Dutimata. Now about the sword. The sword is Dutimata, which is shining, being sharp. Sharpness here has reference to having for its object the self-luminous Atman. And it is a Dutimata, about the shining. It is shining because it is sharp. How it got that sharpness? Now is the answer. Vijnanam akhyam maha asina. By the great sword of realization, born of nididhyasana, the deep meditation, or born of contemplation. So that's why we wanted to say. So the serpent is that drinking got the strength, drinking the milk of sense object, and where from the sword got its power, and by contemplation. There is no hope of a man's, next verse, there is no hope of a man's recovery as long as any trace of poison remains in his body. Similarly, the spiritual seeker cannot attain liberation as long as any trace of ego remains within him. Utterly destroy the ego, control the many waves of destruction which it raises in the mind, discern the inner reality, and realize, I am that. I am the Supreme Self. Your pure consciousness, the witness of all experiences, your real nature is joy. Seize this very moment to identify yourself with the ego, the doer, which is created by ignorance. Its intelligence is only apparent, a reflection of the Atman, which is pure consciousness. How it is working? Because there is it is getting that intelligence, the reflection from our pure self, because it is very close to our inner self. That when in the morning it is the I, this sense first you get, I am awake, I am here. Then everything is added to that I consciousness. Now it is morning. What does it mean? I am aware that it is morning. It has started its work. Now I have to brush my teeth one by one. Then immediately I have to have a cup of coffee. Then I have to run to that. It starts. So it's first I. So when in the very moment, early moment, the first moment that identify your I, or you say add your I with some good thing. I am son of God. I am a daughter of God. Or I am the Supreme Self, I am the Atman. Then you start. So, about the ego robs you of peace and joy in the Atman by identifying yourself with it. You have fallen into the snare of the world, the miseries of birth, decay, and death. And again, Shankara gave another illustration. This ego is your enemy. It is like a thorn stuck in the throat of an eater. Destroy this enemy with the mighty sword of knowledge and be free to enjoy the sovereignty of your own empire, the bliss of the Atman. And it says that Bhaktur Gale, who is eating, Bhaktur Gale means throat, Kantakavat Pratitam, Kantaka means thorn. It feels like a thorn here. vichitya vijnana mahasina sphutang bhungsva atma samrajya sukham yatheshtam. So now enjoy that your samrajya, your sovereignty, your kingdom, by killing that ego. This ego is your enemy. It is like, check all the activities of the ego and the selfishness they involved. Attain the supreme reality and be free from lust. Dwell in silence. And enjoy the bliss of the Atman. Lose all sense of separatedness and realize in Brahman your infinite nature. So it goes on. There's a beautiful, again, illustration. The Atman is the reality. It is your true primal self. It is pure consciousness, the one without a second, absolute bliss. It is beyond form and action. Realize your identity with it. Stop identifying yourself with the coverings of ignorance, which are like the masks assumed by an actor. When a drama goes on, that sometimes he wears a mask, sometimes costumes. So just do like that. When drama ends, you give up your costumes. So give up all those costumes at the end of the drama. So with that connection, now we can read some of the conversation between Vijay and Sri Ramakrishna. So Vijay was a acharya of Brahma Samaj, and he also was a descendant of great Vaishnava saint Advaita Acharya. So he used to visit Sri Ramakrishna time to time. So Vijay asking, "Sir, why are we bound like this? Why we do not to give up our costumes? Why we love the mask wearing? Always we love to, even sometimes we sometimes we remove our glasses, sometimes everything before going to sleep. But here, what about ego? Why you love to wear your ego even in sleeping when you are so you cannot get rid of that." So that is the question. Why are we bound like this? Why don't we see God? Sri Ramakrishna: Maya is nothing but the egotism of the embodied soul. This egotism has covered everything like a veil, like costume. All troubles come to an end when the ego dies. Ami mole ghuchibe janjal. That was the word. All troubles come to an end when the ego dies. If by the grace of God a man but once realizes that he is not the doer, then he at once becomes a jivan mukta, become a mukta, a free person, even in this body itself. Though living in the body, he is liberated. He has nothing else to fear. This Maya, that is to say, the ego, is like a cloud. The sun cannot be seen on account of a thin patch of cloud. When that disappears, one sees the sun. If by the grace of the Guru one's ego vanishes, then one sees God. Then he gave an example, like laboratory. Rama, who is God himself, was only 2.5 cubits ahead of Lakshmana, but Lakshmana could not see him because Sita stood between them. Lakshmana may be compared to the Jiva and Sita to Maya. Man cannot see God on account of the barrier of Maya. If a traditional picture, if you see, when they are traveling to the forest, first Rama is going, then Sita, then Lakshmana, outside. So he took that example. Just look. Now practical example. Now it was theory from Ramayana. Just look. I am creating a barrier in front of my face with this towel. There was a towel. That covered his face. Now you cannot see me, even though I am so near. I am here, sitting in front of you. Likewise, God is the nearest of all, but we cannot see him on account of this covering of Maya. The Jiva is nothing but the embodiment of Satchidananda. But since Maya or ego has created various upadhis, he has forgotten his real self. Each upadhi changes man's nature. When you identify to different thing, when you are thinking I am beautiful, or your that style of walk will change. Just it happens. Sri Ramakrishna is giving an example, need not to say anything. So each upadhi changes man's nature. Then I told, when you develop this kind of little bit witness attitude, just enjoy the drama, what is going on. It is so joyful, not boring at all. But inside it must be clear. So Sri Ramakrishna noticed, he was a keen observer. So each upadhi changes man's nature. If he wears a fine black bordered cloth, you will at once find him humming Nidhu Babu's love songs. He was talking about 19th century. So it was a fashion, wearing that black bordered dhotis. Nowadays, Sri Ramakrishna would give some different example. Then playing cards and a walking stick follow. If even a sickly man puts on high boots, he begins to whistle and climbs the stairs like an Englishman, jumping from one step to another. If a man but holds a pen in his hand, he scribbles on any papers he can get hold of such. Such is the power of the pen. I gave you present a beautiful pen, but no paper. So we are looking for paper. So you have just hold a pen. So what is the point to write anything? Is that emergency? But we feel to write something. So strange thing. Money is also a great upadhi. The possession of money makes such a difference in a man. He is no longer the same person. A Brahmin used to frequent the temple garden. Outwardly, he was very modest. One day, I went to Konnagar with Hriday, the other side of Ganges. No sooner did we get off the boat than we noticed the Brahmin seated on the bank of the Ganges. We thought he had been enjoying the fresh air. Looking at us, he said, "Hello there, priest. How do you do?" I marked his tone and said to Hriday, "The man must have got some money. Why he talks that way?" Hriday laughed. A frog had a rupee, which he kept in his hole. One day, an elephant was going over the hole, and the frog, coming out in a fit of anger, raised his foot as if to kick the elephant and said, "How dare you walk over my head?" Such is the pride that money begets. Keen observation. It changed. That's why it's good to, sit quiet in the person like Sri Ramakrishna. If you want to sit calm quietly. So every movement that person can understand. One can get rid of the ego after the attainment of knowledge. On attaining knowledge, one goes into samadhi, and the ego disappears. He gave an example, Sri Ramakrishna, somewhere else. If you walk when it is at 12 o'clock noon, sun is on top of you, so there is no shadow. So one can get rid of the ego after the attainment of knowledge, but it is very difficult to obtain such knowledge. I that makes one a worldly person and attaches one to lust and gold is the wicked eye. Many kinds of eye he gave example about. The eye of a boy, eye of an old man, baloke rami, buro rami. So this is the wicked eye, bhajjatami or kharapami. the intervention of this ego creates the difference between jiva and atman. Water appears to be divided into two parts if one puts a stick across it, but in reality there is only one water. It appears as two on account of the stick. This I is the stick. Remove the stick and there remains only one water as before. It's just about ignorance. Now, what is this wicked I? Another example. It is the ego that says, what, don't they know me? Sometimes we notice in some video, some police, they stop a car. So from the car, the passenger or the driver, a young boy or girl, do you not know that who my father is? Sometimes we do that. So, now what is this ego, this wicked I? It is the ego that says, what, don't they know me? I have so much money. Who is wealthier than I? If a thief robs a man of only 10 rupees, first of all, he wrings the money out of the thief. Then he gives him a good beating. But the matter does not end there. The thief is handed over to the police and is eventually sent to jail. The wicked I says, what, doesn't the rogue know whom he has robbed? To steal my 10 rupees, how dare he? Vijay, if without destroying the I, a man cannot get rid of attachment to the world and consequently cannot experience samadhi, then it would be wise for him to follow the path of Brahmajnana to attain samadhi. If I persists in the path of devotion, then one should rather choose the path of knowledge. Sri Ramakrishna. It is true that one or two can get rid of the I through samadhi, but these are very rare. You may indulge in thousands of reasoning, but still the I comes back. You may cut the peepal tree to the very root comes today, but you will notice a sprout springing up tomorrow. Therefore, if the I must remain, let it remain as the servant I. As long as you live, you should say, O Lord, thou art the master, and I am thy servant. The I that feels I am the servant of God, I am his devotee, does not injure one. Sweet things cause acidity of the stomach, no doubt, but sugar candy is an exception. Yes, that I, ego is bad. So if trained in that way, be a servant of God, be a children of God. Suppose, Vijay, sir, you ask us to renounce the wicked I. Is there any harm in the servant I? Master, the servant I, that is the feeling, I am the servant of God, I am the devotee of God, does not injure one. On the contrary, it helps one to realize God. Even after attaining samadhi, some retain the servant ego or the devotee ego. The bhakta keeps this I consciousness. He says, O God, thou art the master, and I am thy servant. Thou art the Lord, and I am thy devotee. He feels that way even after the realization of God. His I is not completely effaced. Again, by constantly practicing this kind of I consciousness, one ultimately attains God. There's a beautiful verse in Viveka Chudamani that we are talking about. So Shankara, Acharya Shankara, has given an example of sandalwood. He said, when sandalwood is dipped in filthy, you have to rub that one, sandalwood. That part you have to do. Now he's saying, when sandalwood is dipped in a filthy water, its delicious fragrance may be overpowered by the smell of the filth. But as soon as you rub the sandalwood, the bad odor disappears and the air is filled with heavenly fragrance. The heavenly fragrance of the Atman is overwhelmed by the foul odor of countless evil desires, which are like mud within us. Like sandalwood, its fragrance will fill the air when it has been cleansed by constant rubbing with the thought, I am Brahman. That is the rubbing. What do you do in the meditation, after japa, whatever in prayer? You are just rubbing that sandalwood. That part is our duty. The sweet fragrance of the Atman is overpowered by innumerable cravings for the things of the senses. These cravings can be destroyed by devotion to the Atman, and then the light of the Atman becomes revealed. Know the Atman, transcend all sorrows, and reach the fountain of joy. Be illumined by this knowledge, and you have nothing to fear. If you wish to find liberation, there is no other way of breaking the bonds of rebirth. Brahman dwells within the shrine of the heart. The eternal existence, the supreme, the one without a second, standing apart from the gross and the subtle aspects of this universe. The man who dwells within this shrine, united with Brahman, is no longer subject to rebirth and death. So sit in the shrine with the king, the real king. As a king is recognized distinctly amidst his army, so realize Brahman as pure consciousness, distinct from all imperfections. Dwell forever in the Atman. Let this manifest world melt away in Brahman. One Swamiji, beautifully, he wants that about the king, how the king works, the God, in a hidden way. It's about that he wrote, the Lord has hidden himself best, and his work is best. So he who hides himself best accomplishes most. Conquer yourself, and the whole universe is yours. Sometimes when they discuss about the role of Sri Sharda Devi, she hid herself most. In Dakshineshwar, you see, people used to come, and they used to say, we have heard of the wife of Paramhamsa Deva, but never saw her. In the state of sattva, we see the very nature of things. We go beyond the senses and beyond reason. The adamantine wall that shuts us in is egotism. We refer everything to ourselves, thinking, I do this, that, or the other. Get rid of this puny I. Kill this diabolism in us. Not I, but thou. Say it, feel it, live it. Until we give up the world manufactured by the ego, never can we enter the kingdom of heaven. In Gita, we find in third chapter a beautiful verse related to that. Prakrite kriyamanani gunaih karmani sarvasha ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. While actions are being done in every way by the gunas, that is qualities of nature, sattva, rajatama, one who is deluded by egoism thinks thus, I am the doer. Krishna said, ahankara vimudhatma. He's a stupid fellow. Ahankara vimudhatma kartaham, I am the doer, iti mannate, things like that. He wrote that ahankara vimudhatma, one who is deluded by egoism, mannate, thinks, iti, thus, aham karta, I am the doer. Ahankara is the self-identification with the aggregate of body and organs. He whose atma, mind, is vimudam, is deluded in diverse ways. By that ahankara is ahankara vimudhatma. He who imagines the characteristics of the body and organs to be his own, who has self-identification with the body and the organs, and who, through ignorance, believes the activity to be his own, he thinks, I am the doer of those diverse activities. To give up the world, in the word of Swamiji, to give up the world is to forget the ego, to know it not at all, living in the body, but not of it. This cheeky ego must be obliterated. Bless men when they revile you. Think how much good they are doing you. They can only hurt themselves. Go where people hate you. Let them thrust the ego out of you, and you will get nearer to the Lord. That is how Swami was talking about Kabir. Somebody is to criticize Kabir. So when the person died, they informed Kabir. That person who is to criticize you is dead now. So Kabir told, so I am feeling very bad, because that is the person, for him, I used to always be alert. Somebody is there to check me. Very nice. Tulsidas, I found a beautiful doha, a couplet of Tulsidas. Tulsi waha jaye jaha adar na kare koi, man ghate man mare Ram ka smaran hui. He said, Tulsi, O Tulsi, go to a place where no one cares for you, where no one knows you. As a result, your swelling of ego will decrease. Your mind will be subdued, and you will remember Rama. Neither seek nor avoid, take what comes. It is a liberty to be affected by nothing. Do not merely endure, be unattached. Remember the story of the bull. A mosquito sat long on the horn of a certain bull. Then his consciousness troubled him, and he said, Mr. Bull, I have been sitting here a long time. Perhaps I annoy you. I am sorry, I will go away. But the bull replied, Oh no, not at all. Bring your whole family and live on my horn. What can you do to me? So identify yourself with your real nature. But when you are practicing, go there when nobody cares you. It will help you to subdue your ego. In Jivan Mukti Viveka, Swami Vidyaranya, he quoted a verse from Padma Purana. It says, Asammanat tapo vriddhi, sammanattu tapakshayaha, architaha pujito vipro, dugdha gauri basidati. You see the attitude, this is a difference between with the knower of God, a real genuine seeker of God, and with an ordinary person. Their spirit is different. So Swami Vidyaranya, the great philosopher saint, he noticed that. He told, dishonor, asammanat, dishonor increases the force of austerity in the form of meditation. After that somebody that dishonor you, that somebody didn't give the due respect that you thought it was my due. So sit in the meditation that night. You will feel that meditation will be very nice. That's it. Dishonor increases the force of austerity. That Tulsi, according to Tulsi, does the same thing in the form of meditation. But honor diminishes it. The Vipra, that is a knower of Brahman or a seeker of Brahman, having been worshipped and venerated, becomes exhausted like a cow after milking. So this is their spirit. Give up all thought of me and mine. To him who has nothing in the universe, the Lord comes. Cut the bondage of all worldly affections. Go beyond laziness and also beyond all worry, as to what will become of you. Never turn back to see the result of what you have done. Give all to the Lord and go on and think not of it. When the whole soul pours in a continuous current to God, when there is no time to seek money or name or fame, no time to think of anything but God, then will come into your hearts the infinite. Wonderful bliss of love. All desires are but beads of glass. It's nothing. It is not a beads of pearl or diamond. All desires. It is useless. All desires are but beads of glass. The whole sky is the censer of God, and the sun and moon are the lamps. What other temple is needed? All eyes are thine, yet thou hast not an eye. All hands are thine, yet thou hast not a hand. Another disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Premananda. Swami Premananda was embodiment of humility. He was a Ishwar Koti, one of the disciples, among the 6 disciples that Sri Ramakrishna to call of a special category, a pure one. He was absolute pure. So one day Swami Turiyananda came in the monastery, another disciple. So Swami Premananda that prostrated himself before him, a Sashtanga Pranam. Then Turiyanandaji told, stop, my brother, stop. I cannot surpass you in humility. So there's beautiful, with that we'll end to this discussion. So once Swami Premananda remarked, a lover of God seeks no praise for himself. His heart is forever full. If people speak ill of him, he is not disturbed. Here's a clue from the discussion. As a practical, what will happen to you if you practice all those things? So here is a note from Premanandaji. A lover of God seeks no praise for himself. His heart is forever full. If people speak ill of him, he is not disturbed. Brother, he cannot tell the difference between his own and the own of others. He lives and dies loving others, not looking at the merits or defects of others. But he does not die. But he does not die. Love confers infinite life, immortality, strength of conviction, faith, and reverence are all that are needed. With this treasure, we have to work, we have to practice. So, in Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna is full of gems. So here and there, you can find some spark of that infinite something. So there's just 2 lines I got somewhere. Sri Ramakrishna sent Hriday to a scholar, a Pandit, a renowned Pandit of that time, a renowned scholar. Why? So he told Hriday, please go and see whether the Pandit is egoistic or he has a lot of pride or not. Hriday returned and reported, no, that there is no pride in that scholar. Obhiman, Hriday eshe khobor dilo, Obhiman nai. Then I went to visit him. So if you want that Sri Ramakrishna should visit you, or Buddha or Christ, that you have to that erase your ego. Namah Atma Pradipaya Shakshine Paramatmane Namo Girang Viduraya Manasas Chetashamapi. Salutation unto the Lord, who is the light of the soul, the witness and the Spirit Supreme. Salutation unto him who is beyond speech, nay, even beyond thought and beyond consciousness. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Peace, Peace, Peace.